Hey guys, welcome to another video. My name is the Goldman, and today we're gonna do a tier list for the chapters of The Mandalorian. This is a new series I want to do called Tier List Tuesdays. The name is self-explanatory. I do a tier list every Tuesday, and you guys let me know your thoughts on my placements, if you will. Okay, so we got the chapters of The Mandalorian, so chapters 1 through 16, and let's rank them. So let's get started with chapter 1. Now, chapter 1, in my opinion, is a masterclass in how to do a pilot, if you will. I love the way they introduced Mando's character. I love the way they introduced the world of The Mandalorian, his dynamic with IG-11, with the droids, how it set up his character arcs. I think it's a fantastic episode. So I am gonna go with amazing. The pilot is just, again, a perfect example of how to tell a pilot. Up next, we got chapter 2. You know what's really bad? I probably should have prepared for this, but I don't remember the names of the individual chapters. So chapter 2 did a good job at building the relationship between Mando and Grogu. At the time, he was just Baby Yoda. It wasn't the greatest episode. It's not an episode that I think back on and I'm like, wow, I need to rewatch this. I think the Mudhorn fight was really good. The chase with the Jawas was neat, but it wasn't too great. It got my favorite character, Quill. Quill's the best character in the entire series. But I am gonna put it in still enjoyable. I don't think it's at that really good category. I think you'll see some of the few episodes I think are really good, but chapter 2 does do a good job. It's definitely not a filler episode. I think still enjoyable is a good placement for chapter 2. Let's move on to chapter 3. Chapter 3, in my opinion, has probably one of the best scenes in the series, and that's when he's on the ship and he takes the ball and he realizes he sits there, he thinks, and then he decides to go back and save Baby Yoda. I think, again, that is a masterclass in directing, and especially directing people who are wearing helmets the whole time. I think Halo does a great job as well with that. If I had to put chapter 3 somewhere, do I think it's as good as the pilot? I don't want to put every episode in amazing, because I think if I do that, it diminishes the effect of what an amazing episode really is. I think overall it was fairly enjoyable, so I'm gonna put it in really good. I think it's definitely much better than chapter 2 because you got some great action. The story is definitely essential for the rest of the series, but when it comes to amazing episodes, chapter 1 is just significantly better. Chapter 3 has a few flaws, but not many. It's a really, really good episode. Chapter 4. The middle episodes of season 1 are conflicting for me. There's some I think are a lot of fun and really enjoyable, and then there's some that I think are bad, but I think none of them really progress the story all that much. They're important episodes, they're not all filler, but I think there was a lot of room for improvement, especially with those 3 episodes, chapter 4, 5, and 6. So with chapter 4, I'm gonna put it in mediocre. I'm not sure if that's a hot take or not. It's not an episode I'm fond of when I want to rewatch the series. It introduces Cara Dune, which is a great character. The fight against the bandits was okay. Just for me, this episode didn't add enough to the series. And again, this kind of goes back to my problems with the middle 3 episodes of season 1. I just don't feel like they do enough to progress the story the same way season 2 does. So I think that placement is good for chapter 4. Chapter 5. Chapter 5, I think, is the worst episode in the series. Again, it doesn't have great characters. I know it has Fennec Shand, and a lot of people like her now, but at the time, she didn't really do anything. She was just there. This episode is... I think this is the only episode I would really classify as filler. The only reason this episode exists in the series is because they need Fennec to end up with Boba Fett so she can be in the Book of Boba Fett show. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this episode. I'm gonna put it in bad. I feel like this is not a hot take at all. Chapter 5, either chapter 5 or chapter 10 are a lot of people's least favorite episodes. I think bad. I think it's a bad episode. Let's move on to chapter 6. Even though chapter 6 is still in that second act of season 1 that I think struggles a lot, it's a fun episode. It is a really fun episode. I am probably gonna put it in really good. Now, this might be contradictory because, again, what I said about these episodes kind of being like filler, even though they're not really. The characters in this episode are just so much fun. I love Xion, the Twi'lek chick. I love Bill Burr's character. I love the setting. I love this scene when they meet up with the New Republic officer. I thought that was a fantastic scene. It showed a lot about Mando's character. I think it's a really good episode. Definitely nowhere near amazing. It probably belongs in still enjoyable, but For me, it's one of the episodes I can rewatch over and over again, and it's a fantastic episode. Chapter 7. In reality, not much happens in Chapter 7. It's kind of a Avengers Assemble type episode where Mando goes around, he gathers the troops, they execute a plan, and the plan goes wrong. When I think about this episode, my favorite part about this episode is Quill's death. He's my favorite character, you guys know that, and his death is just so heartbreaking. One of the best death scenes in the entire franchise. So I'm gonna put this episode in really good. Again, not amazing because, again, not too much happens in this episode, but man, was it a really good episode. Really good episode. And to conclude Season 1, we got Chapter 8. Chapter 8, again, belongs in amazing. Again, it just, the way it wraps up Mando's character arcs, the way it wraps up that whole setting, IG-11's death was fantastic. It's a great episode. It is the definition of a great episode to me. Might be top 2 or top 3 favorite episodes for me. I know when it comes to the episodes within the tiers, there's no specific ranking, but I would have it above Chapter 1. I think the finale was fantastic. Now let's move on to Chapter 2. Chapter 2, we got the Cobb Vanth episode. Oh, I love this episode. I really love this episode, but I think it belongs in really good. A big problem a lot of people have with Season 2 is that for the first 5 episodes, mostly actually the first 6 episodes, it's Mando needs something, he meets a character who can provide him with that something, but that character asks Mando to help him with the mission. So it gets really repetitive after a while. I think of those episodes, this one does the best job. Cobb Vanth is a great character. I made a video on that, by the way. The whole Krayt Dragon fight was a lot of fun, especially the way, one aspect of this episode I really appreciated was how they changed the aspect ratio. In any Star Wars live action story, we haven't seen that before. I don't know the exact numbers, but I love the way it expanded the aspect ratio. So I think Chapter 9 is a really good episode. Really good. Now on to Chapter 10. Chapter 10, I would say, also belongs in mediocre. I don't think it's as bad as Chapter 5. A lot of people have this as their worst episode. I don't think so, because I really liked the dynamic with the Frog Lady. I know she's kind of a memed character, but there's just something about seeing an ordinary person in the Star Wars universe, not involved with any side, any conflict, just trying to make their way through the galaxy. I really appreciated seeing that. The location was also fairly unique. There's not many snow planets that they go to in the entire series. I'm trying to think in Season 1 if they went anywhere snowy. I don't think so. So it was a unique location that I liked for this series, so I'm gonna put it in mediocre. It's not bad. It's still an episode I can watch and have fun. Chapter 11? So when it comes to the Season 2 episodes, I have to do the mental math. It's like 3rd episode of the season plus 8, Chapter 11. So this is the one where we meet Bo-Katan and some of the other Mandalorians. Again, it follows that same formula where Mando needs something, these people can provide it to him, but that he needs to do a mission for them. I'm gonna put this episode in still enjoyable. I liked the characters a lot. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's not an episode that I think about like, oh, this is something I really want to rewatch. I loved the scene in the beginning of the episode when the Frog Lady meets up with her frog husband again. That was a really sweet episode, and it was neat seeing the other Mandalorians, but again, nothing really pops out here in terms of a fantastic episode, so I'm gonna stick with still enjoyable. Up next, we got Chapter 12. Again, gotta do that mental math. Chapter 12, I think, also belongs in that still enjoyable episode. I loved seeing the Season 1 characters again, Cara Dune, Greef Karga. I think the Mythrol is the name of the blue person. They're fun. I liked the mission. It's probably the closest we've gotten to a potential Snoke hint as to what they want to do with Baby Yoda's blood, because they're trying to clone him, clearly. It was a really fun episode. Still enjoyable. I don't think it's as good as the really good episodes. Those episodes are fantastic. So I think still enjoyable is a good placement for it. Up next, we got Chapter 13, the Ahsoka episode. This episode is really good. Seeing Ahsoka in live action is, for someone who's been watching the Clone Wars since it came out, and even Rebels, I've known Ahsoka Tano as a character since 2008, so to me, seeing her in live action for the first time in 12 years, even though she's a much more mature woman, it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun, and the episode is also really done well. I liked the samurai vibes. You know, I like how you got the Western standoff between Mando and, I forgot his name, but he's in Aliens. I think it's Michael Biehn, I'm pretty sure. And then you got the samurai standoff between between Ahsoka and the Magistrate. It was just a great episode. We learned that his name is Grogu. That was pretty awesome. It's a very memorable episode for a lot of people, and it's a lot of people's favorites because of Ahsoka. Up next, we got chapter 14. This is where we really get Boba Fett's introduction. I know we saw him in chapter 9, but this is really the first time we see Boba Fett. For me, this episode I think might be the shortest episode. Not much happens. They go to Tython, Grogu sends off the call for Luke, and then he gets taken away, and they kick a bunch of ass. I'm gonna put this episode in still enjoyable. The action scenes are great. Again, you guys probably know I'm not a big Boba Fett fan, so seeing him kick ass wasn't like OMG for me. But I loved how they destroyed the Razor Crest. That was really ballsy move by them. Completely surprised they went in that direction, but I was glad they did. A lot of great action, but doesn't have the story elements that the really good category has. So I think keeping it in still enjoyable is where it belongs. Up next, we got chapter 15. Now, this is maybe a hot take, but chapter 15 is probably my favorite episode in the series, so it belongs in amazing. The way they use Bill Burr's character Miggs Mayfeld, which was introduced in chapter 6, the way they use him again was they did it in such a brilliant way. How they gave him his own character arc. Isn't that crazy? I would never have thought that Bill Burr's character would have gotten a character arc. And the way Mando took off his helmet, it just showed how much Grogu means to him. Again, it's the show don't tell aspect I love about this series. There's so many great things I can say about this episode, mostly Bill Burr, also Mando's character arc, how he just shows I want Grogu this badly, and he's willing to sacrifice his religion, if you will, a big part of his religion, to get Grogu back, and we see the consequences of that in the Book of Boba Fett chapter 5. I love that. I love it. Amazing episode. And lastly, this is probably no surprise to anyone, but we got chapter 16. It also belongs in amazing. Just the way, and it's not because Luke simply shows up. Was Luke there awesome? Yes. But the climax of this chapter of The Mandalorian, or I should say the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, the goodbye between Mando and Grogu, when Mando takes off his helmet one last time so Grogu can see him finally. It was such an emotional scene. One of the few times in Star Wars I've teared up. There's video of that on my channel, so you can go check it out. So many great things about this episode. It definitely left its legacy. Probably the most important episode in the entire series. Seeing Luke again was awesome. But yeah, so this is my final ranking of the chapter of the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. I really hope you guys enjoy the series, and let me know what other tier lists you would like to see me do down below. I think in 2 weeks, the Book of Boba Fett will be done, so I'll probably do stuff with that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you guys so much. I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you guys enjoyed the series. I'm excited for it. Don't forget to unite the Cloud Squad, and I will see you guys next time.